Welcome to Part of the Arts with me, Rebecca Godden, the podcast where we dive into the journeys of creatives through the world of the arts. On this episode, we have guest Steph Watkins. Steph grew up immersed in performance, training in musical theatre and acting with dreams of life on stage. But when the pandemic hit, everything paused, as we all know. And in that pause, something entirely new began. From a bedroom broadcast with a USB mic taped to a plant pot to landing a role at the BBC and now presenting a daily radio show in local radio. Steph's journey is full of unexpected turns, self-discovery and an inspiring commitment to her creativity for others. She's also been open about her diagnosis of autism and ADHD. We chat about how neurodivergence can become a superpower in storytelling and connection, along with what the loaded word of failure really means and looks like in our industry. I'm so excited to welcome Steph on to share her story today, from the stage to the studio and everything in between. Hi, Steph.
Hi, Becca, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Welcome to Part of the Arts.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be doing this with you.
I'm so excited to have you on here. So I feel like I'm going to kick off with like a bit of a context of how we know each other. Just because it's always nice when I've got someone on that I actually personally know. Well, we went to primary school together, didn't we? And in a little village, kind of middle of nowhere, village vibes. Different years. I'm older than Steph. I'm not going to divulge the ages. And then we literally hadn't kind of crossed paths for years and years and years, and we bump into each other at an audition in London.
That was weird, wasn't it? It was for a Christmas thing, wasn't it? Was it Christmas?
It was, yeah. It was like some sort of grotto immersive thing, and it was a massive group audition. Do you remember? And they were like, it was really physically demanding.
It was like tumbling, wasn't it? It was like there was this massive like gym room that had like mats on the floor. And I just remember being like absolutely sweaty by the end of it, like
same.
Exhausted.
And I remember we got the tube home together because we both lived in East London, didn't we?
Yeah, of course.
We were like blabbing on the tube for like the whole way home, and we were just dripping. We were like, oh my gosh, that was exhausting.
And of course, with it being Christmas audition, we were doing it in like around the summer, wouldn't it have been? Yeah. So it would have been warm.
Yeah, and it was like the tube. It was, and we were like, why? It was like a physical theatre audition. I was like, if we get this, what are we going to be doing? You know? And we both got a part, didn't we? We both got within it.
Yes.
But we didn't do anything to do with tumbling or physical theatre.
Nothing at all. No, I was Mrs. Claus. And then I did it a year after as well with them, and they gave me the flattest dolly shoes ever. Like these things were like wafer thin. And I went back to the tube after standing for like 4 hours in these shoes, and like I couldn't walk. And like 5-6 years later, I still have problems with my feet from that moment.
I feel like blame those dolly shoes.
I think it was the tipping point for me. I developed something called plantar fasciitis literally after that.
No.
And it's been years of like recovery since. So
even though it wasn't a physical theatre demanding job, it was demanding on the legs.
Very, very demanding for me.
We were stood up for long periods of time, like elfing. Well, I was an elf, and I think I was also Mayor Teddy of Toy Town in one of them. I was the mascot, which first and last time I've done a mascot gig. Let's just say that. They were like, but you get paid more, and I was like, yeah, I'm sure you do, because you're in this massive like.
You're basically in a duvet for 4 hours. So you come and you go out, and then you kind of
like really look after you. 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off, 20 minutes on. And to be fair, they really did. They did do that. It was me and another girl swapping. But yeah, wild times. And we've reconnected. We've been on kind of following each other on social since, just kind of like checking in, and it's just so lovely to see kind of your journey, and that's what we're kind of going to talk about today. And before we delve into that, I just want to ask, have you got something? I feel like you're this kind of person. Have you got something that you've said or done either recently or something you did way back when, but it's just stuck with you, where you thought, yeah, Steph, that should have stayed inside?
Yeah, I literally had this the other day, right? So I've recently been covering for The Breakfast Show, And so that means 4 a.m. starts.
Gross.
Not entirely used to. It wasn't as bad as I thought, but so the show starts from 6 and then finishes at 10.
Yeah.
And immediately after, for the breakfast team and a lot of the journalists and everyone in the kind of management, they all go up and have a meeting immediately afterwards. And we work very close with our sister station in Jersey. So they'll have the exec of the Channel Islands who kind of oversees everything. He joins in on Zoom. So we've got this big like screen like in our meeting room where we can see him and he can see all of us collectively. And our top story we were talking about for the next day was all about dog poo. And
I love that was the top story. This is great.
Top story. It was actually really interesting. It was about the suggestion of DNA profiling for dogs. And
that's really interesting.
I know. And it's weird because when I first heard about it, I kind of raised my eyebrows, but actually Gibraltar do it. There's towns in Germany, Spain, France, Italy, they also do it as well. So it was kind of a discussion point around that.
Yeah.
And obviously because my boss's boss was joined in over a Zoom call or a Teams call on the screen, I misheard him. And so he said, we were talking about the dog poo, and then he said, oh yeah, people go mad for that stuff.
Right.
I misheard the word stuff and I thought he said the S word for poo. And so I look at the screen, I go, I know what you mean. No one else did.
And he was like, what is she doing?
He looked at me for what felt like 45 seconds. I'm sure it was only 2. And then everyone just carried on with the meeting.
Oh, no.
And I was mortified. Because I realized in that moment, oh my God, he didn't say that because he's not reacting at all. He also wouldn't swear on a professional meeting. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I really kind of put my foot in it. That is very me. And I think people are just used to it. So they just kind of let me get away with it now.
I love that. They were just like, we're just going to smile and just carry on.
Steph, let's just leave her to it and carry on with the actual agenda of the meeting.
Stephanie and Steph, we'll wrap that up. But then did you find yourself just thinking about that for the rest of the meeting?
Yeah. Yes, I did. And then I went and was having a cup of tea later with some colleagues, and I think they were actually talking about embarrassing moments. And I was like, well, I just had one there. And they were like, yeah, what was that? So it wasn't like people didn't acknowledge, people heard it and then just, so.
At least you got to unpack that straight away. Like you were like, okay, I can now move on. I've unpacked it.
Yeah. I mean, it was about maybe an hour and a half of lingering, to be fair. But I think people had realised by that point in the week, it was like the Thursday. So I'd done 4 early shifts all back to back, which I'm not used to.
Yeah.
And
your body clock was
up
with
it's that brain. Breakfast show Delulu that hits you hard after you've finished and you just after all the energy's kind of gone. So I think they let me off. But
I feel like I would let anyone off for anything I said for doing that early in the morning. Kind of using your voice and your energy and your persona. Like, I am not a morning person. Like, everyone that has either lived or worked with me knows that I'm not grumpy, but I'm just like mute. I just don't talk. And I mean, that's not like me. So everyone just thinks there's something wrong. And I'm like, no, I'm just not on.
And normally I'm the same, but I've had jobs in the past where I've had to wake up that early.
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy them. So that was really hard. Whereas actually coming in to cover for breakfast, I actually really enjoy doing the breakfast show because it's very fast paced. It's very different kind of show that I do normally throughout the week. And I really like kind of switching it up every now and again and also putting my own spin on it. So actually I was coming in and full energy for 4 hours, basically. Obviously light and shade within that, but giving it real hard energy. But then afterwards, by 11 o'clock, it's like just waiting for bedtime, basically.
Yeah, you're like, I've still got the whole day. You're like, what do I do? And that's so interesting, actually, you saying that. I think that is very true within, if you're getting up for something that you're passionate about, or even if you've got to get up early to go on holiday, oh, I'm different then. I'm like buzzing. I'm like, you know, like we're getting a drink in the airport, even though it's the morning, because, you know, when you're in the airport, it doesn't count. And all of that, like it's whatever time you want it to be. And even when I've gone on tour, I've gone abroad on tour. I'm very lucky and fortunate to have done that as a director. I've been a bit more like on it, because it's exciting, and you're also looking after people, which you're also doing on your radio show. You know, you're looking after the morning kind of people that are listening to you, and they're going about their day. So if, you know, you've got to be that person that's getting them through. I guess. No,
absolutely. And I think actually, because I'm in Guernsey, it's very different, because Guernsey is its own place. It's not like an area in the UK, like a county. There will be sort of rivalries between counties and things like that, but actually the things that happen in Guernsey, because they have their own government and they have their own laws and everything like that, it's actually really important to be delivering the news of the day to those people. So a lot of people do tune in to us in the morning for breakfast, particularly actually to just know about what's going on. And that's a lot of weight on us. And we all have, you know, everyone in the team works with pride, but there is a lot behind it. So it is really important to be able to bring them to them, but also to start their day right, like, you know, to kind of the agenda for the day for anybody listening. So yes, we'll be delivering, you know, the serious topics, but we'll also be delivering the things to celebrate. You know, this big thing that the BBC has is called Make a Difference, and it's all about sharing wonderful stories of people within the community. So that's something I really, really enjoy about the job that I do, actually, is the weight of giving that to people, but also keeping them company on the other end.
Oh, I love that. And also just talking, because we're talking about Guernsey, for those, including myself, that don't know a lot about the island, I've never visited, like how big roughly is the population? You know, like what are we talking with that community? Do you know?
So it's about, the numbers kind of vary. The last I heard, it's between 64 and 66,000 people. So not big at all. It's like a village on a rock. I used to live so before I moved to Guernsey, I lived in Salford. And I lived right opposite Old Trafford, the Manchester United Stadium. And there were I think it was 75 or 78,000 people who can fit in that stadium. So every Saturday morning, more people would go past my flat than the country that I was moving to.
Did you feel really like, was that wild when you were making that up?
I could not make sense of it in my head. It was really weird. And now now living here, and I've lived here for 3 years, and I didn't know much about Guernsey before I moved here either. But now that I've lived here, it has some really special things about it. It really does. It is very much, people call it the village on the rock, but it gives you that community feel. There's a lot of issues with Guernsey as well, because it's a small place. There's a lot of difficulties in terms of housing and you know, people's views on political things. We don't have a party system here. We have deputies, they're called, which is basically like MPs in the UK, and they all have they work for committees rather than a Labour government or a Conservative government or any other government, you know, sort of party. So there's a lot of really, really specific things that make Guernsey the way it is. But I mean, one thing that is nice is on a sunny day, you're never more than 10 minutes from the beach. So that's always good.
Oh, that's gorgeous. That's a dream. Just having that beautiful seaside on your doorstep constantly. Is it like small enough that you actually like bump into people regularly? Yeah.
Yeah. Which is nice, because we have a friend, our second day that we moved to Guernsey, they have this thing in the summer called these balcony gigs, which basically on the other side of the island from where I live, there's a beach called Cobo. Google it, it's beautiful. And on one of the hotels, they've got this sort of balcony, and they get a lot of these cover bands to come and perform there, basically. And the road will be shut off. Everybody is dancing and chatting and drinking in the streets and in the sea and on the beach itself. And it's amazing. It's gorgeous. And we went down because we'd heard about it from somebody. So we went down on literally our first full day on the island, and ended up meeting, it was too busy to get a bus back, and there aren't really many taxis in Guernsey. So we were waiting for a bus, couldn't fit on it, met these people in the queue, and we just thought, oh, do you know what, we'll just go back to the pub then. So we carried on, we met these lovely people who became our friends. And then every now and again we go, oh God, I haven't seen that person. And we'll be in town, round the corner, they'll just walk. They'll just be there, be like, right, It's like magic. It's
like
really
you summoned
strange.
them.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, there they are, they're alive, great.
Yeah, it is like that. But you do see a lot of people,
Yeah.
and also see, because I talk to so many people as well. There's a lot of people who in the community who I now know quite well from chatting to them on various stages in their journey. So that's actually a really nice thing. But it's lovely. It's nice. Sometimes you don't want everyone to see you all the time, but like sometimes
I live in a small city, and I work, very much within the community and the arts scene within my local city where I live. And yeah, absolutely, I live in town, and I can't go to the high street without bumping into someone. And sometimes, super nice, like it's so nice having that connection, but sometimes I just want to go to the gym, or I just want to go to M&S and get some food. And I literally have you seen You on Netflix?
No, I haven't yet. It's on my watch list. I've heard very good things.
It's great. Like the later series get a bit, but like the original, really good. But Joe, basically the kind of protagonist, he wears like a cap as his like disguise, and it's a really shitty disguise. It's a really rubbish disguise. It's a cap, and it's a navy blue cap, and I have a navy blue cap, and I ended up feeling like I was like Joe from You, because I just put my cap on and would like dart through the high street and be like, no one can see me.
Yeah, I
think it
sunglasses for me. If I put my sunglasses on, I'm there to go and do my stuff and then leave.
Yeah, AirPods in, sunglasses, cap. At least you can then, even if someone notices you, they're like, she doesn't want to be disturbed. Like she's in her incognito vibes.
Yeah.
And talking about kind of, you said about the balcony gigs in Guernsey, what's the kind of arts scene like there? Like, have you seen anything recently on your island that's left you with a spark, or like interacted with anything, particularly in Guernsey?
I think there's a lot of, because it's very expensive to get professional companies over. So there's a really big Amdram scene over here, and the quality is good as well, because there aren't as many opportunities to get into professional theatre or arts unless you move away from Guernsey. So actually people who are involved in the Amdram stuff are really involved in it. There was a production of Anne Frank that my boyfriend was actually in. When was it? A year or 2 years ago. And that was really good. And the girl who played Anne was, I think she just turned 16 at the time. You can tell she's just going to be a superstar. She is incredible, and really, really, as a 16-year-old, it's difficult, and it's not even like a personal thing, because at 16 I didn't have that level of emotional maturity. It's just some people learn it quicker.
Yeah,
but she has this emotional maturity to be able to show the innocence, but also grow with the character. And I think that was one thing that I was really impressed with. But I mean, we're seeing, just generally in terms of the island, we're seeing, a little bit more stand-up comedy, which is something I always used to go to in the UK. So that's really good. There's lots of like music festivals that they run. And again, this is they're very sort of keen on honing in on homegrown talent. So they will have a lot of the artists here who are very good, by the way. So they will, it's very much sort of nurturing homegrown talent is something that they're really, really keen on here.
That's so nice to hear. And also talking of that, that young girl that was kind of maturing through that role, and you could see that in here. Like, let's take it back to the beginning, for you. What role did kind of performing play in your kind of upbringing, growing up? What kind of got you into wanting to study that?
So I think it started back from when I was as young as in year one. So that's what, 5-ish.
Yeah.
And I remember, well, I don't remember this, but apparently my teacher, Miss Baldry.
Miss Baldry.
Miss Baldry spoke to my mum and said, and I don't know if it was just because I was fidgety or there was something, but she basically said, you need to get her going to these performing arts classes on the weekend. So I started, and I think you were meant to be 6 and I was about 5.5, but they let me in early.
Yeah.
And so that was at Stagecoach, and so I'd go to Stagecoach on a Sunday morning, and I did that for 13 years. So really for me, it was just part of my life. It was, I think it taught me a lot growing up in terms of creative discipline. I think was one of the big things that I really learned. Like, I know that when I was sort of in school, I got to be part of, like, you know, when the touring productions of Joseph and Whistle Down the Wind, they came round, and I was allowed to be in those performances and felt like a celebrity when I was doing that.
You do though, don't you? When you're on, because I literally did the same as you, but I went to the poor man's version of Stagecoach. I went to Theatre Train.
Oh yeah, no, I because you had to audition for Theatre Train, right?
Yeah, you did.
I remember auditioning for it when I was really, really young. Yeah.
Even though I call it the poor man's version, it was great, but it was just cheaper fees.
Yeah.
So it was, and you didn't get access to like an agent and stuff like that. Like, it didn't give you some of the other ins that like Stagecoach gave you. But honestly, when you performed on that kind of big, you know, Milton Keynes Theatre stage, you felt like, oh yeah, didn't you? You were like, oh, this is it.
It's a beautiful theatre, and I think it was built around the time that we were sort of kids anyway, so it was still quite new and shiny as well when we were kind of performing there. But it was amazing. And I think when it came to like choosing my options for GCSEs, well, I was like, well, obviously I'm just going to basically realign, so I'm doing sort of Stagecoach in the week. So I did music, drama, and I did dance on the side, actually, because they were going to offer it at my school, and then there weren't enough people who signed up onto it.
I hate that.
So there was a bunch of us who were really keen. So actually, initially I started, and I can't believe I did this, they couldn't start it in the first term, so we'd have to basically go and do extra classes outside of school.
Wow.
But they couldn't start it in the first term. So I was traveling every Thursday after school. I was getting on the train, going up to St Albans and doing another like after school club where they were kind of doing the same thing there. So I was getting a lot of training for that. And I did that for a term. And then I, like, when they started the one that the rest of the girls in my cohort wanted to do, I moved over to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was every Thursday and every Saturday I was going up to St Albans. And my parents are incredible to help me with that. I'm incredible.
Chauffeur, literally, my mum was my chauffeur for anything I did to do with performing arts. And you've got to be like, kudos to them.
It's hard, isn't it? Because the amount of, and bearing in mind I'm one of three as well, so they were doing a lot of, you know, chauffeuring around, but the way that they kind of, you know, went as far as allowing me to go to so many things, it was incredible. But yeah, so I did my GCSEs. I did art as well. Not great at art. I passed, but like,
I'm the same as you, babe. I'm like, I can dance, I can sing, I can act. Ask me to draw, that's where I literally draw the line.
I enjoy it. I do enjoy it, and I think I got, because you're constantly practicing, I think I got better. It's not really something I've kept up with, and I think that's a shame in some ways, but I do like artistic things outside, like I do like embroidery and cross stitch and stuff like that, so that's my kind of version of like keeping up with that side of creativity, but like my own kind of chill out way of doing it. And then I went to university, and this was quite interesting, because so my year was the year where it was the last year before they upped the fees, so basically nobody from my year group took a gap year, because it would have been, even if you'd gone and worked for a year, it'd gone from $3,000 to $9,000. Are you really going to be earning that much money in a service job, for example, in a year to justify that difference? No. So I felt a little bit pressured to go to the university that I did. Looking back, it wasn't the best fit for me, which is a shame, because people tell you when you're going to university that it's going to be the time of your life and you're going to have the best time. And I didn't, and I felt really.
And was that musical theatre you did?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so I went to a So I actually went to two universities. So I went to one first of all in Weston-super-Mare. It was a college campus affiliated with a university, and I did my foundation course there. And then in my third year, I did a year at Colchester, again, a college campus, because they tend to have the better facilities, but it's affiliated with University of Essex. Yeah. And I think I lost a lot of confidence in the first year, particularly. I was also in a relationship, and it wasn't very healthy, and there was kind of a lot of things that were happening for me around that time, and I didn't really felt like I fit.
Yeah, and I guess again, like what we touched upon earlier with that, probably just didn't have the maturity, the level of maturity as a young woman going out into a exposing industry, but training in an exposing industry with also you're growing up as a woman within your relationships as well, like all of that. Like I can relate to that. Like you're figuring out who you are, as well as being in quite an intense, because I did the same as you. I did a degree. So I did a performing arts degree. And, our degrees we're in like 5 to 7 days a week. Yeah. We're not in like a lecture every 3 days and then doing your own little seminars and stuff. Not that everyone else's course was like that, but a lot of my friends, their courses were lighter touch, let's say.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of wider reading for other people. And there was a bit more flexibility, whereas actually it was like school basically for me.
Yeah.
I felt pressured to take the position on that course, because a lot of and I don't know if this is still the same way now, but when I was applying for places, I was applying as an 18-year-old for drama schools. And a lot of them, again, they want somebody who's a little bit more emotionally mature. Mm-hmm. So it's very rare for people who are 18 to get in first time. And so I was applying to lots of these drama schools, and some of them if they offer a degree, they took up a UCAS place. Mm-hmm. So silly old me, I had gone to a lot of these drama school auditions, and and I think I only had 2 universities, like there were actually universities. And so there was one and I didn't get in, I think because by that point, I messed up the audition, to be honest, because I'd been so brought down a couple of pegs from going for these big drama school auditions and not even getting through the first round. And I thought, oh my God, I'm a failure. I'm never going to survive. I like, this is all I've known and loved, and I can't even get a place. Like and now I know that's not the case, but
as a young woman going into the first step of professionalism within the industry, outside of, everything you've known before that, it's a lot.
Yeah. It is. I think as well, if you're, people knew that this was sort of attached to my personality, like I wanted to go into performance, and that's everyone. If growing up, if they knew a lot about me or not a lot about me, I think that was sort of something that was very constant, that people did know about me. So to not be getting it was really hard. I took this place at the first university. It wasn't entirely the right fit, but I never like to say I'd never do it again, because it has led me where I am, and I'm very happy doing what I do now. But I think it's interesting to kind of reflect back on it and go, actually, do you know what? It wasn't the perfect experience.
Yeah.
And then by the time I moved to a different university for my 3rd year, and there were a couple of us who sort of moved over, it was a lot better. And I think it would have been better if I'd have gone to that one first.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can't even remember why, but I didn't even apply for that one. And yeah, I think the damage had been done for me for that.
Yeah, point. You'd already kind of taken the brunt of that experience. I'm so glad though that when you went to that 3rd year that it was a better experience, because that in itself we had exactly the same thing, as in I stayed in my uni for the 3 years, and we got a cohort of people from like Manchester, from like a uni in Manchester, who came and finished their degree with us and did their 3rd year with us. And I always thought, I always tried to welcome them as much as possible, because I always thought, oh, that's quite a lot, like going into this kind of, again, with performance, we were cliqued as you are. We were a very small course, and we were all kind of like in it and performing together, and we'd gone through a lot together. And then you're getting this group, these 6 to 8 people that were coming in and finishing. And I always thought, I felt for them, because I always thought, oh, that must have been really hard.
It was really hard, because you're walking into an established group.
Yes.
These are people who know what their peers' strengths are, what their improvements need to be. And so it kind of felt like we were coming in, the 4 of us, and we had to prove ourselves.
Yeah.
And that wasn't because of anything that they'd, impactfully done to try and make us feel that way, but it did feel like, we had to prove that we were talented, I suppose. That's that's a lot of pressure to put on. And I think by that point, my self-confidence had fallen so much, and I was just like, I'm fine with being in the background at this point. which I didn't want to be, but I
Right.
settled for that is the best I'm going to get.
So then how did you find, obviously, before we move on to kind of COVID and like career pivots and things like that, how did you find living and working in London? How did you kind of rebuild your self-confidence to kind of go into that world to establish yourself? Because I completely know what you're saying, and I will always remember you. I'm like by the way, I've got like a memory like an elephant. I remember everything. And I would always remember, no, it's a good thing, don't worry, Steph. I always remember when we were having that conversation on the tube journey back, I had been living kind of back in Milton Keynes, and I'd been mainly being like a facilitator, director, producer, and I'd kind of established myself within that. And I'd moved to London to kind of try become an actor again. Well, not again, because I hadn't really been out of uni long, but I like to fully try being an actor and being a performer. And I remember talking to you about that, and I remember saying to you like, oh well, like I don't really know like what I label myself at the moment, because I've established myself as a kind of a director, facilitator, producer, but now I'm kind of doing performing, but I wouldn't say I'm a professional actor. And I remember you just stopping me saying, do you get paid to perform? And I said, yes. And you said, well, you're a professional actor. And I was like, okay. And that always stuck with me that you said that. And I was like, and that really was that kind of like, okay, yeah, like you don't have to have been in, I don't know, something on TV and have a professional credit at that point, or ever have to have that. But if you're getting paid to do something, you're a professional in it, because every other industry would class themselves as that. So why do we, as kind of actors, as performers, as people that put ourselves out there, why do we find that more difficult? So from that point on, Steph, I was like, no, okay, yeah, I will call myself a professional.
Oh, that's so lovely. That's something I had no idea that. It's so funny, isn't it? Because I don't even remember saying that.
Yeah,
I've got memory like a goldfish. So I love that stuck with you. That means a lot to me, actually. That really does.
Well, you know what? I kind of forgot until we speaking. It just came back in, and I was like, I just remember that, and just being like, it was just so nice to organically talk to someone, because I felt quite insular in the city since I'd moved and was kind of trying to make it and stuff, because it's that rat race, it's that lot of competition, and there's not a role for everyone. And I hadn't really found my kind of community and the kind of collaboration aspect of things yet. It was just the kind of the grind. So yeah, I don't think I had long been in the city. So yeah, so how did you find like the city? How did you find navigating that as well?
So the big turning point, I think, for me was when I got into drama school. So there was a drama school, and they did an audition at our uni, which was really great. And I think there should be more drama schools that do that, actually. And we all got feedback, which was, again, another really, really rare thing. And for me, that was a green flag. And then they called me up and they said, yeah, your singing was pretty good, your dancing was pretty good, but we loved your acting. And I was like, huh? This is the thing that I thought I was worst at. And I'll be honest, 20 minutes beforehand, quickly looking through it, and we're like, yeah, that'll do, and I'll just give it a go. And I think that was a tactic that I used to use as self-sabotage, actually, because it was like, if I didn't get it, it's because I didn't try hard enough.
Yeah, I was just I didn't really care about it anyway. It was,
yeah, exactly. It's because it's not because of my ability, it's because I didn't try hard enough. Oh, next time I'll try harder, whatever. And they said, we loved your acting, we want to offer you a place in the acting course. And I was in the house alone, and I got off the call and I just sobbed. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, somebody wants me for something, the person who I thought was always going to be pushed into the background for things, and somebody's heard me and sees something in me. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go for this, actually, because that is the first time somebody really, other than before sort of training at university, somebody's actually seen something in me. So I moved to London for that year, and I did a year at drama school, and I had a great time. It was intense. I really, really loved it. And then after then, I stuck around and lived in London, and it's hard, isn't it? It is a hard slog.
Hard. And I think that's why that, those moments when you do connect with another creative and they just say something that just gives you that little boost, and you're like, we get it, we get each other, we get it. And we're so hard on ourselves, and we're very good, I think, as performers to give advice to other people, but not necessarily take it ourselves as well.
Yeah. I think for me, because as well, I threw myself into theatre reviewing. So I did that voluntarily. And I would just say to them, just, I'm free on this day, this day, this day, send me to whatever. And I got to see some incredible things.
Nice.
I mean, some weird things as well, don't get me wrong. But some amazing stuff that I would never have otherwise bought a ticket for myself if I didn't know about it, you know, because of various reasons. But actually it just opened my eyes to really analysing what the space looked like. At that point, I was really kind of wanting to focus on theatre. I managed to get myself a lovely agent, but I was really struggling to get in the room. And I did do a couple of things. I did pantomime, where I was Cinderella in Manchester. It was like a sort of an indoor winter wonderland. The venue doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, but it was like a massive indoor winter wonderland thing. And then I did Edinburgh as well, which is the poster that I just got up behind me. And that was wild and such an amazing experience. But I really struggled to get in the room, and so I was spending a lot of my time theatre reviewing and working service jobs, basically, just to get by. And being very poor in London, when investing in yourself is the main thing that is going to help you mentally be ready.
Really hard, isn't it?
Really hard, yeah. Really.
It's like, I was the same as you. I was doing a lot of promo jobs. I was like basically a promo girl. Like, there was, you know, and it was so difficult to keep your craft going when you're meant to be going to all these classes and stuff, but then you're so exhausted from being on your feet all day working customer service event jobs, and then you get home, the last thing you want to do is do a self-tape, the last thing you want to do. So it's not even just the opportunities, it's the energy to actually have the creativity to create the opportunities. It's
the mental space. You need to feel psychologically safe within yourself, in where you are in life, with, you know, the things that really you value as well. Like, for example, since moving on from that time in my life, I've learned that financial stability is something that I really value, but in order to make me happy, I don't need to be rolling in money. I just need to feel safe and secure.
Just need to be secure. And do you know what, I'm with you on that. There is something to be said, just, you know, about being comfortable and not like hand to mouth, mouth to hand, like constantly, because you know, I actually haven't had one in quite a while, but I was having it every like kind of 3 to 6 months. I'd have like an absolute, like what I'd call like a literal like meltdown, where I'd just be crying about like not earning enough money, maybe I should just do something else, like, you know, all that kind of thing. And it was so, that in itself was draining, because you felt like you had to pick yourself up and start again.
And like, it's this idea as well of failure. Like, if you leave, then you've failed. And actually, I think that whole idea should be totally rewritten. You know, if people do choose to move on from performing specifically, like what I do now, involves so much of what I've done in the past. That it's not, I've not failed by.
No, you wouldn't be. You probably wouldn't be doing what you do now if you didn't have your background, or if you were doing, you wouldn't be as good at it as you are, or have like kind of progressed as much as you have. And, you know, lockdown was a huge kind of pivotal moment for you in the self-reflection, in the kind of, how am I going to now use my creativity? Like, can you talk us through that kind of rationale? What switched for you?
I think it was, you know, I just started a job working, again, temping for this alcohol company. And I didn't like the person who I was working for. And I'd only been there 6 weeks. And then you start hearing these rumours, oh, there's this big virus that's spreading around and it's killing lots of people. And the army circulating the M25 and not letting people in and out. And there were all these rumours happening. And it got to the point where my boyfriend and I, we were living in West London at that time. And we said, you know, our street that we live on, I feel fairly comfortable, but there are sort of surrounding areas with people who are going to really struggle with this. And it wasn't actually, you know, you think 9 years beforehand in 2011, we had the you know, the riots, the London riots. And it's like, are people, in terms of that was my solid psychology and understanding how people respond to those kind of moments.
Yeah.
Well, not in a judgmental way, but if that happens, I don't feel safe. We're on a ground floor. There's a big bay window with my, you know, a telly in the front. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, are we going to be a target for this? So we, like lots of people, packed everything up and moved back to stay with my parents. My boyfriend went with my parents. What we thought was for a couple of weeks.
I feel like we messaged during this time. I feel like we like, I think I spoke to so many people on Instagram, but because we stayed in East London. So we didn't think we were going to be locked down in a 1-bedroom flat for as long as we were, but you know, none of us knew, did we? None of us knew.
We knew, and it's weird to think now, because it feels like because now we can rationalize it, and we understood what happened. But at the time, you have to remember, no one knew what this meant. And so when we were packing our stuff up, my boyfriend, he sent it all up in a van, came back down to London while I was leaving my day job. I got back home to the flat. We were putting the last bits in a suitcase. Boris was meant to give a talk at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And he was late, and we thought, we have to go. We have to go now. So it was like we fled. And it was the strangest, most bizarre, exhausting feeling I've ever had. And you know, we got back to my parents, and I'm really glad we did that, actually, because it gave us room and literal space to breathe. You know, in the village, there's a lot of places to walk, there's fields around, and you know, I'd lost my job. You know, I had to leave it. They wouldn't let me work from home. Then furlough came in. I said, "Oh, can I please work from home and you can give me furlough?" And they were like, "No." So I was like, "Brilliant, thanks."
Here you are, back in your, you know, your childhood bedroom.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, what's next? What am I doing?
Well, I didn't know how to move forward. I felt again, it's that idea of failure. Have I failed? You know, it's got to the point where the world has stopped. I can't even get back in. At the time, I was thinking I can't even get back into an industry because I don't know what the state of it's going to be.
And like, we were all in that as well. Like every single person I have, you know, had on this podcast, you know, we were all in that state of, is there going to be a freaking industry to come back to? Yeah. We know that actually only this year have things started to properly, I think, you know, properly start to come back. But then now the government, we've got our own problems again. But I think only really, like, from COVID has the industry only really this year started to completely, like, leave it behind, if you know what I mean.
I think it's only now that the hangover's kind of wearing off for a bit.
I think that's a great term.
And I so my boyfriend, who again was also in the creative industry, he was meant to be, so he was doing 2 shows at the time, producing 2 shows and directing one of them as well. And he just put on this show at the Vault Festival.
I love the Vault.
I know.
Actually, it's breeding ground for COVID.
I think, has it shut down now? Is it shut down?
I saw something a couple of years ago there. I don't know if it's shut down, but I think it's a lot pared down. It's not as the festival isn't as big as it was. I think they do still do stuff, but it's not like a whole Vaults festival anymore.
Right, okay.
I think.
But I remember going to, you know, he was doing something at the Vaults Festival, and then also it was meant to be a big cast. It was a Philip Ridley new play, with lots of cast and involved, and there was a sugar babe who was involved in it and everything. And it was actually quite like a big thing. And then obviously they had to shut everything down. And I was friends with one of the actresses in this first play that he'd done at Vaults, and I saw on Facebook that she'd signed up to this internet radio station to present, and I was like, I could give that a good go. Like, I think I could be okay. I remember walking around the village with my boyfriend and saying, I think I could be quite good at this, you know. So I called them up, and you know, they just set up in lockdown as well, because everyone was looking for a new hobby and something to do. And so I came on initially as a cover presenter, and then started doing the morning show.
I bet also it gave you a bit of like connection, during lockdown as well, like you're talking to people, like
it is.
yeah.
And even if no one was listening,
Yeah.
for me, I didn't.
Hang on. We need to shout out your number one fan, your dad.
Yeah. I know, and even to this day, bless him, unless he's like going for a Tesco pickup for the click and collect, he's like, Steph, I'm really sorry, I missed this part of the show. And I'm like, Dad, it's okay. But he used to listen to every single, I think he still has basically pretty much every single show I've ever presented right from the beginning.
Oh my God. And so you're up in your bedroom doing this and he's just literally downstairs in the living room listening.
Downstairs in the living room doing his ironing, and I'm upstairs, diagonally upstairs, and you know, I'm sat in my bedroom with an old USB mic gaffer taped to a plant pot.
We love this.
And that was my setup, and sort of into my laptop. But it was really great. And then when things started opening up a little bit more, I got myself a pub job. Again, I wasn't really enjoying it, but it was something to earn some money.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of these things where it's like things happen for a reason. 2 weeks into me doing that job, somebody came in with a microphone set up and everything like that. And she was interviewing this like kid band basically. And I said, oh, you know, what is this? What are you doing? She said, oh, I'm doing it for this radio station. It's just recently been taken over. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. I also do radio, but if this one's local, I'd love to hear more about it. Got in touch with the guy who had just literally 3 weeks beforehand bought it. And I owe everything to this man. I really do. I will always be grateful. He started off with Chris Moyles. They worked on Horizon together. He's done Capital Radio, Virgin. He's worked with like the big names and done a lot of big radio. And we obviously got chatting, and I don't know, he just saw something in me. He just believed in me. And so he really,
all you need as well, isn't it? Just that person to be like, I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to kind of always mentor you. And like, I believe in you. Here we go. Let's do this.
But I think it's that pay it forward attitude, which I'm always so keen on doing. If anybody ever approaches me for advice, I will always pay it forward. Because do you remember Richard Park? He was the judge on Fame Academy, if you remember.
Oh, yes, love Fame Academy, of course.
Yes. So Richard was one of the bigwigs in radio when David, this man, was working there, and he would always give him advice. And David asked Richard one day, you know, how do I thank you for this? And he said, pay it forward. And so that's what he's done with, you know, people like me. And so I did a show every single day. Now these were because it was like a sort of semi-commercial station. It was pre-recorded things, links basically. So it would take on a good day about 20 minutes to do a 2-3 hour show. But doing that consistently, and again, this is all in my free time. Sometimes I'd be finishing a 12-hour shift at the pub, come back, it's midnight, and I'm in my bedroom recording these links before I go to bed for the next day. You know, sometimes it was as tight as that. But there was something about it that just kept me persisting.
That buzz.
Yeah, wanting to work on it and improve and grow. And that's when I thought, do you know what? I really want to do this. I really want to get into this.
That's what kind of gave you the motivation, was that creative freedom and that spark that it was just driving you forward.
Yeah, totally. And being able to also not hide behind a character in a weird way. I always kind of thought, you know, in terms of performance, that was a security blanket for me. Actually, it's nice being able to trust that people like who you are authentically.
Oh mate, this has been so freeing for me, like hosting a podcast. I completely can relate to that. I was like, oh, I'm going to do something as me. Okay, there's a scariness in that, but also
it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable, isn't it?
So vulnerable, but also, God, of what a freedom there is in that as well. I'm like, I don't have to learn a character or lines. Or prep too much. Obviously, I've got to prep my questions and know my guests and stuff. But actually, anything that comes out of my mouth is just from me. Like, wow, revolutionary.
And people, I think authenticity is something that people gravitate towards as well. So, you know, actually trusting in myself to know that actually some people do want to listen to what I've got to say. In contrast to feeling like that kid in university who, you know, oh, she's just here in the background. Actually being able to to be myself and to know that I have something to offer, I think has been a massive personal turning point.
That's so great. And we've spoken about it briefly. You've shared your ADHD and autism diagnosis. How has that helped as well? Like your neurodivergence with your creativity, often they come hand in hand. A lot of creatives are neurodivergent, and that is rightly so now being celebrated more than ever. But how did that also help you kind of be what you were saying, your authentic self, and actually be that confident you in the radio, thinking this is me, this is who I am? Did the diagnosis help with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think this, again, for me, this has been a journey that I've been on for quite a long time. Again, in lockdown, this is something that I kind of discovered about myself, and I did a lot of research before kind of trying to pursue it. And anybody who's ever been through anything like this will know how difficult it can be to try and obtain a diagnosis if you're trying to do so. So I ended up going privately for a diagnosis a couple of years later. It was only last year I actually got the papers through. But I mean, the person who I went with was fantastic, and my experience with them was so replenished, actually. And I think having a full understanding of who I am as a person allows me to be a better friend on the end of the radio. Also, it means I can advocate for, a lot of people, let's take ADHD, for example. Stereotypically, a lot of people think of a small young boy running around a classroom. And that's not what it is at all. At the same time, people, think of a lot of autistic people as non-verbal, or really sort of obsessed with particular topics. And actually a saying that people often use within the disabled community is, if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Actually, everyone is so different for
a reason. We are all individuals.
Yes. And being able to, and I think I'm lucky to be able to harness, something that I'm really strong at when I'm interviewing people, for example, in my role now, is empathy. I prior adverts on the telly, right?
Oh, me too. Yeah.
I'm incredibly empathetic, but actually what that means is it makes me a very good interviewer when it comes to getting people to trust me.
Yeah.
Media can be scary. It can be a scary word for people. And some, people think that the media a lot of the time are out to get people, or out to get the, out for themselves to get the exclusive on things.
Also, it's again, it's that stereotype of a journalist. That's been, like we were saying, a stereotype of someone with ADHD. I think it's, and that has come, normally it comes from the media, the stereotypes. It comes from what we see and what we consume. So you can absolutely see why people would be anxious. And do you find as well, because because you work now for the BBC, do you think that scares people a little bit as well, because it's this big kind of corporation in a way?
Yeah, I think sort of, specifically in Guernsey, because it is small. It's for the last 40 years it's been on people's doorsteps, so actually people are a bit more used to us here.
They interact with it a bit more personally.
It's quite strange, but I think that's that sort of journalistic stereotype can be intimidating for people, and being able to be authentic within myself. I'm a bit messy, I'm silly, but also I care. I genuinely care about hearing people's stories, and that's what makes people have such a good experience, which allows them to open up. And then it's these stories that then affect other people. Somebody listening on the other end of the line could think, gosh, I know someone like that, or, oh gosh, I bet that's how they're feeling. You never know. And that's the beauty of what I get to do. You never know who it's going to touch.
Yeah.
So it is I love so much what I do. I adore it. It is the perfect fit for me. I get to listen to music for 4 hours a day and talk to people.
It's like your dream job.
It's the best job in the world for me.
I love that. And it's so great. And like we were saying, you wouldn't have got to that point had you not been through everything else. And what kind of, your career progression is great. You move for your job, right? You move for the roles that you've had within your radio presenting career. So are you kind of, if something arose somewhere else in the world or the country, would you move for the right decision, the right job?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think that is obviously something that is very specific to me. Not everybody wants to do that. Because, like, I don't have children, for example. I don't have any specific ties. So yeah, if there were an opportunity that came up in the future, I would move for the role. And I'm sure at some point, you know, I'll find my city. But at the moment, I quite like that opportunity of moving.
Like, you're like, if something came up, I'd go. Like, let's just see I'm happy now. But if something else came up, then yeah, absolutely, I might say yes, I'd consider it.
I think it's, you know, it's about taking the leap, isn't it? Because when I got offered so originally I joined BBC Guernsey as a journalist, but I also got offered a job at another BBC local station, and there was, again, it's just seeing those signs from the universe. There was something that was pointing me towards, actually, do you know what, take this leap, because the aim for me was to get some cover presenting at some point and then move back to the UK. I didn't expect to have my own show. Really, the plan has worked very well, but but you know, I was covering the show within 3 months of moving there. I think because they saw me and they did a really good job at you know, selling the job, basically selling the island life. And they realized that I was quite a valuable pawn in their chess piece, their chessboard, for what they needed at that point, because they needed somebody who could do it.
You complemented each other. You were both what each other needed in that time. And you know, I think again, it's very clear your willingness, your enthusiasm, your passion. You've got such a lovely voice as well. So you've got, you know, your perfect radio voice.
Thank you. And face as well.
Of course, darling. You're from the arts, so you've got a
face for radio.
Oh no, I would never say you've got a face for radio. You come from the arts. You've got a face for it. Got a face for performing. And absolutely, the flexibility as well, I think, is something that we learn being in the arts. You know, all that training and all that auditioning and going to drama schools and unis in different places, and you know, you take tours. You go, you know, to the Fringe, you go and do a panto in Manchester, you go do all this stuff. I think that obviously helped as well with that kind of, cool, I'm gonna move to a different country and, you know, host a radio show and see what happens.
Sometimes it's about taking the risks. Weirdly, I'm a very creature comforts person, and I think I'm lucky I've had a very supportive partner. I remember walking with him in Salford going, are we really going to do this? And he was like, yes, Steph, you have to.
That's
and
so great.
I'm so lucky, and he was right. You know, this has been, you know, not just for my career, but for me as a person. I've grown, I've learned so much getting to do what I do. And I think it is such a creative job. We're a very small team when we are at my station, and my team specifically, we're tiny, and there's a lot of work to do. But knowing that we get to have fun and we get to be creative, be topical, be reactive to stuff is so exciting. You know, stuff goes wrong all the time, and we have to react in the moment. And again, that comes from my improving. You know, voice training and things like that obviously helps me take care of myself and
to sustain your voice. You can cover the breakfast show and do your own show and have this, you know, sustain the voice throughout that, because you've been trained. You know, and I think that's why, like I say all the time on this podcast, that the government need to stop cutting access and funds to the arts, especially for kids, because like we need this basis in training within the performing arts to just be better as people, and to go into any job, like every job you go into, you're going to need to present or host a meeting or network, and it's just all those things that, you know, that just building blocks for it. And you know, our industry is weird and wonderful. And to kind of bring us towards the end of the podcast today, I always like to end with like what's the weirdest job you've ever done, Steph?
I have so many of these. Do you want to hear one story or both of these stories?
Oh my gosh, I can't pick, so it's gonna have to be both.
Okay, right. So story number one, I'll make this quick. I was temping in a very well-known department store in London.
Nice.
I was up on the 4th floor doing the perfume samples, you know.
Oh, yeah, but they lift it in your face when you're walking past.
Yeah, I was one of those. And I was up on the 4th floor when it was June, and I was surrounded by Christmas decorations. And it must have been, and we weren't allowed to talk to each other either. And so it was literally just standing in isolation trying to give people perfume samples.
But basically like a perfume robot.
Yes, exactly that. And the weird thing is they hire all these performers and tell them to be quiet. It was
to be in their box.
It was really, really bizarre. But it must have been when they had a lot of children on their sort of school holidays, because I remember there was this sort of the guy who walked past who must have been like a prince, okay, like he had sort of the robes on and like amazing sort of headgear. He breathed more money than I've ever seen in my life, basically. Like it's so rich. And I tried to
extravagant.
yeah I tried to offer you know, oh, do you want to try, I can't even remember what perfume it was now, but I tried to offer this perfume sample. And he didn't look at me, and that was kind of normal, and so he just walked by. But then his kid, I'm going to say about 10 years old, again, more money in his toenail than I've ever seen in my life. His kid, about 10 years old, walks right in front of me, stops, okay, looks me dead in the eye. About 10 years old, this kid, doesn't say anything. He just folds his arms and shakes his head and then walks on.
Like gives you a disapproving,
like, what are you doing with your life?
And he's like 10
years old.
Wow.
And I was about, what, 26 maybe.
And you like, what am I doing with my life?
Yes. It's like, what am I doing? I'm so right. He has no idea, but he's so right.
So meta.
It was actually a massive turning point for me. Again, it was one of those things when I was in lockdown, I kind of thought, oh my gosh.
Remember that child?
Yeah,
that, like,
I will never forget that
you can
child.
have better than this. You can have better than this.
I will never forget that kid. Never, ever. And then there was another story for you, and this is so bad, but I thought we'd end on this one because it's quite funny.
Okay, I'm ready.
So I used to do children's parties.
As we both did. Yeah.
I loved it. I actually loved doing the kids' parties. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And most of the parents I dealt with were lovely. But
there's always a story.
Well, actually, this wasn't anything to do with the parents this time. So sometimes, normally I'd be like in a clown costume, a unisex with quotation marks clown costume, and but sometimes if the parents paid extra, they'd have sort of themed parties, and I had like a full like costume shop full of costumes at my house at this point.
I feel you. I had that too.
Yeah, right. And then I think it was like an Alice in Wonderland dress that I'd been sent. But of course, when you're getting adult costumes for women, sometimes they're kind of tiny, right?
It's basically your slutty dress up stuff.
Yeah,
if they're getting you, if the company is sending you a quick, you know, from a party shop or from Amazon, they're going to be what just, you know, the layman's person wants to wear to a fancy dress party. Not appropriate for a kids party.
No, not at all.
I've had these. Yeah.
I didn't try it on. I should have tried it on before I went to this party, but I thought,
that's an error.
It was very short, but it was okay to get away with. But the problem is I was definitely wearing the wrong underwear that day.
No.
And there was a bit in the routine where I was basically sat on this kind of like toolbox with wheels where I kept all of my stuff.
Yeah.
And the puppet was kept underneath the table.
Oh, you had a puppet.
Oh, wow.
There's layers to this.
And there was a sort of tablecloth that covered it, and he was underneath the table, hidden by the tablecloth. And I get him out, do the puppet show, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay. Say goodbye, Sammy, everyone. Bye, Sammy. Bye, Sammy. I leant down to put him underneath the table.
Yeah.
And as I did, my skirt got caught
on the toolbox,
the corner of the box that I was sat on. And I showed my bare bum to an entire hall of 6-year-olds and their parents.
No.
And the worst bit, the only reason I knew that happened is because they all started laughing as my back was turned to them. I didn't realise what was going on until I had this roar of laughter of everyone looking at my bum.
And you were like, oh no.
obviously I was mortified. I was absolutely mortified. Sent them off for lunch, making these balloon swords, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Am I going to get fired? Bless the parents came over and they were very sweet. They knew it was an accident. Like it was unfortunate.
They knew it was a wardrobe malfunction and that you were trying your best. No, Steph, I've got a story to like counter that. I've got a similar experience where a lot of my characters were princesses. I won't say D word, but yeah, you know, for copyright reasons, probably for this said company. And I was wearing this big princess dress, you know, think about the yellow golden dress princess.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. Massive hoop, massive dress. So like what could go wrong within that instance? I'm just wearing my underwear that I normally wear. I also find out that it was the wrong underwear. We're all sat down in a circle. I think I just sung a song to them. It was lovely. The birthday girl had just been crowned. It was all lovely. And then we stood up, and then I suddenly felt something like pouring at my dress, and I lifted my dress up, my hoop and dress up, and her 2-year-old brother had got stuck under my dress. Was pouring at the hoop and the dress, this really heavy dress, and he couldn't get out. So I'd obviously engulfed him in it as I'd stood up, like the little gap. He'd either just gone under because he's a kid, or he'd just got caught in it. Oh my God. Too, and I feel like I've probably like scarred him for life being within that.
He's never going to be able to watch that film again, you know.
I know. And then ever since that point, I wore like cycling shorts underneath every single costume. I was like, even when you're wearing a floor-length dress, you're not safe.
No, you're never safe at a kid's party.
You're never safe at a kid's party. So we've all had those kind of shown our bum in one way or another.
It makes me feel better. I'm so glad it's not just me.
No, it was just also the realization that like, what is trying to get out of my dress? Because he was there, because the dress, the hoop was so big, he wasn't like on me. Do you know what I mean? Like,
gosh.
Wild. We'll end it on that lovely vision for everyone of oh my gosh, exposure.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily again, like the little girls were giggling, but the mum did come over, and I was like, and he just let you know, he just got caught under my dress.
Just to let you know, there's a child inside the dress.
I was like, I just want you to know that he's okay. He just looked a bit bewildered. He was like walking around like. And she was like, oh, no worries, he always gets into weird places. And I was like, that's probably the weirdest place he's
the weird place is a bit of an understatement, really.
But I was like, I feel like I have to like talk about this. I can't just like act like it didn't happen. And so yeah, that's how we'll kind of wrap up the podcast today. Before we go, Steph, have you got anything you want to shout about within your career, or anything you're doing at the moment? Obviously, we can find your radio show on BBC Sounds. Would people just put your name in? Like, what would you put in to find that?
Yeah, so if you go to BBC Sounds, scroll along to Guernsey, then you can listen to my show. I'm on every weekday from 10 till 2, and you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Steph on the Radio.
And I'll pop all of that within the info of this podcast. Again, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a delight. I hope you've had fun.
I've had the best time. Yeah, I really have. Thank you so much.
Good. Thanks for chatting to us. And yeah, all the best with your radio career. We'll be listening. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Parts of the Arts. If you enjoyed this episode or any of the others, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Also, we would love it if you could support this passion project by buying us a coffee. All the info is below. Thank you and see you next time.